Hello there, and a warm welcome to another edition of Channels Beam. I'm Mayowa Ogundele. President Muhammadu Buhari's inauguration into his second term, another 4 years at the helm of affairs in Nigeria, provided the cyberspace another opportunity to dissect its performance in the last 4 years. The voices of those who say the president is on the right path seem drowned by those of dissatisfied citizens. So how has the government fared in the last 4 years, and what are Nigerian youths looking forward to in his last tenure? This is what we will discuss on today's program. But before then, here's a look at trends in the past week.
The swearing in into
his second term, another 4 years at the helm of affairs in Nigeria, provided the cyberspace another opportunity to dissect its performance in the last 4 years. The voices of those who say the president is on the right path seem drowned by those of dissatisfied citizens. So how has the government fared in the last 4 years, and what are Nigerian youths looking forward to in his last tenure? This is what we will discuss on today's program. But before then, here's a look at trends in the past week.
The swearing in into office of President Muhammadu Buhari and other elected officers across the country made social media's biggest topic in the past week. While some users took to various online platforms to celebrate the peaceful exercise, as well as the continuation of democracy, others expressed their concerns. The day marks the first time inauguration will hold on a day other than Democracy Day. While some praised the move by the governor, Seyi Makinde, others considered it a blunder on his part.
Those are the trends in the past week. Now to the discussion segment. President Muhammadu Buhari on May 29, 2019 began his second term in office. The president in his first term promised to tackle insecurity, boost the economy and fight corruption. How well he has done in those areas, and what are the expectations for the next 4 years in office? To set the agenda for the Buhari administration and perhaps by extension other state governors, I have with me in our Lagos studio a public affairs analyst, Devo Korea. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you so much.
Now, they say that, one looks at the past in order to, chart a better course for the future. If you look at the past 4 years of the Buhari administration, how well would you say they did overall, him and his team?
Well, usually, most times people don't like to hear the scorecard. But I think they did their best with what they had at hand. But that is not to say that the Nigerian public is satisfied. So I think there's a lot of dissatisfaction in many areas of our political space, from the federal level of organization and implementation of their plans to the state level, as well as all the way down to the local government and the various communities. Practically everyone has a strong opinion as to how well the government fared within its 4 years. And as usual, we will always hear the responses of, well, they met something really bad and they're on their way to putting it better. So let's just say that we're still in the challenged position as a nation in many, many respects. And that leaves us in a state of dissatisfaction, which the hope is, given that they have been re-elected, that we would see much, much more.
Now, leading up to the inauguration ceremony, the channel's television conducted some polls on social media, asking various questions, how the government performed in various sectors. And, there's something I noticed that some people said infrastructure did well. What is your take on that?
I really wonder what they mean when they say infrastructure. Because, for example, if you take a look at the budget, a high percentage of it was recurrent, and a very low percentage was capital expenditures, is where the infrastructure gets paid for. Now, yes, this was one government that actually appropriated a lot for the capital expenditure, but how much was actually appropriated at the end of the day? How far did it really go? The Super Minister Amechi, that's transport, he's still requesting for his bits, counter funding on on a lot of the projects, especially rail and some others. Aviation was there. In terms of water resources, I'm not sure many people got more pipe-borne water and where they operated. Let's not forget the main kahuna, power. How far did we really go, especially where government is concerned, transmission. We're still having so many issues on the transmission end of the divide. When we refer to roads, I take, for example, the east-west road in the southeast. Not much has been done on the south. It's like a horrible state.
So is it all bad news? Is that what you're telling me?
It's not all bad news, but you see, I like to discuss Nigeria in this context. We're a nation of many opportunities that have not been tapped. So it's how the government is able to implement the change that we have been dearly yearning for. And that's why most times when people discuss, it comes from a place of pain. And I think if you speak of how much did we have at hand, how much was the budget across the years? Between, I think it was about 6 trillion, which was with devaluation, which came up a bit, so about 8.7. How far did they really go with that amount of money? Mind you, I'm speaking in terms of what they had. Now, even in the budget, they were not able to fund it to a large extent. So did they really go far? No, they didn't, even though they had the plans and the intentions to.
Now, what would you say are the top 3 needs of young people in the country? A lot of people would say, just from the polls as well, some said if you fix power, then,
you've done a whole lot.
Industrialization will come
Right.
in, then jobs will be created, and by extension, insecurity will be tackled.
Right.
What would you say are the top 3 needs government needs to do for the young population?
For the young population, given that the youth actually power the economy, yes, power is at the top of the agenda. Power has a multiplier effect in terms of creating opportunities for those who are in the productive sector now. Also given the opportunity for entrepreneurs, which rests to a large extent within the youth population. And then also creating some level of sustainability, especially on the educational, health, and the social amenity side. So that's one. Secondly, for the youth, I would use the word inclusion. Inclusion has to do with a lot of governance policy and stance. Yes, they did sign the Not Too Young bill, but remember in the joke that the president passed, he said, well, you will activate this after I have. he put a year to it. And the truth is the youth are past due. They form the biggest constituency in the nation, and they're the most neglected. So they come top of the agenda in terms of inclusion. We need to start seeing from the federal, state, and local government points of view, policy position, how they're included. There has to be deliberate policies, legislation to bring them to the fore, because they actually form the bulk of the people you are addressing.
Right. Now, let's quickly head over to Abuja. Let's bring in a political sociologist and lecturer at Bayes University, Dr. Sulaiman Barnabas. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Now, what is your take? We were discussing, the past 4 years of President Buhari and his team. How do you rate the last 4 years?
Well, on a general note, I think that the last 4 years has actually been something that we can actually be grateful for in terms of how the government has tried to tackle some problems that have confronted us in the last 16 years before the government came on board. Having said that, there are lots of things to do, and I think that the Nigerian people have actually re-elected this president so that he can actually do better. And things that he needs to correct, he needs to actually hit the ground running in this second term.
Now, if there's one thing I'd like to definitely get your thoughts on is, in the last 4 years, a lot of times, if you feel the pulse of social media, where a lot of young people, air their thoughts and opinions, many people felt that the president was disconnected from the young populace. They felt that he, didn't speak much, he didn't address them much, and I guess they wanted more of that. What is your take on that? Some would say, we don't want talk, we want action. What's your position?
Well, I think there's a concept that Karl Marx calls economic determinism. The frustration of the young people with the president must have actually been informed by their economic situation. And so in this new regime, I mean the new tenure, I think that the president will do very well to see how they can create more jobs for the young people. Once this problem of joblessness is solved, then I think the youth will actually appreciate what the president has been doing. It's true that he has not been engaging them one-on-one, but of course he has people, he has lieutenants, you know, that ought to have done that. Some of them have actually done that, and the ones that are still lagging behind, they can actually do more to ensure that they engage the youth, create jobs for the people, ensure that the social welfare programs of the president, you know, gets down to the youth so that they can actually feel what the president is doing.
All right, Devo, let me come to you. Just from that point of people felt the president didn't engage with the young people as much, and let's tie it to Inauguration Day when they didn't get a speech. And that's one of the things that trended online. Would you say that it's not that necessary if they're doing what they're supposed to do?
Well, it is very necessary. Like I mentioned, let's take it into context. For 180 million, if not short of 200 million individuals, the youth form 70% of our population. You're referring to 140 million individuals that are being neglected. Let's rest on that for a while. Now, for the lack of a better term, those should be the people you should be addressing. They should form the bulk and the direction of your agenda. If you don't even speak to those who are older, you must discuss with the youth. Now, not having something to tell them on an inauguration day doesn't tell them much to expect. What was given as a reason was that it would come on Democracy Day. And if we understand that well, Democracy Day was not created for setting of agendas. That's what we expect to hear on the inauguration day. Now, the president needs to recognize this. The country as a whole, in terms of its positioning and structure. We talk of restructuring all the time, and most times when we hear about restructuring, I really don't hear where the youth are concerned or they're involved or where they are going to play a role. The youth need to be brought in some way, somehow, even though the Not Too Young bill has been enacted. That's on the political end. What about in terms of as citizens? How well are they being treated? What budgets are being planned for them? What in terms of education is being planned? Because these are the deliberate attempts that direct to the youth for them to be productive. Remember, there's a role they play within the timing of their age, and if they're not capacitated at that time, they become unproductive. So the arrogance that comes with most time when people address young people or the youth as if they're supposed to be people we're supposed to manage, they are our children. They're our own brothers and sisters.
And our strength.
Our strength.
Let me throw that back to Dr. Barnabas. Dr. Barnabas, I mean, still on this matter of youth inclusion, let me bring a saying that ask not what your country can do for you, or maybe ask what you can do for your country. So let's throw it back to the young people. How would you advise that they put themselves in the picture and make sure that they're a part of the system and a part of the growth that we all need?
When you talk about the states, the local governments, you know, you find the population made up of, you know, the larger population made up of the youths. And when youths engage in thuggery, when youths engage in vote selling, you know, these kind of attitudes towards leadership recruitment and leadership placement can actually affect, you know, the accountability that youths actually ought to put in place in demanding that their leaders do what they want them to do. So like you rightly said, the youths also need to ensure that they participate in the process with transparency, with integrity, without handing themselves over to the political thespians or political players to use them just for thuggery, for some kind of political profanity, as the case is. So these are some of the things that people can do, and the young people can actually educate themselves. They have different types of groups, you know, they should sensitize themselves, mobilize themselves to ensure that the change that they want, the change towards youth inclusiveness in governance and the process of leadership comes to play.
This conversation will continue in a bit, but we have to take a break. Do stay with us. Well, welcome back. We're still discussing digital age and social behavior, and our panelists are still with me in the studio. I do have Leila Ijoma, who's a blogger. I have Oluronke Ogini, who's a clinical psychologist, and on Skype, we do have Timileyin Bello, who is a PR consultant. Thank you so much for hanging in there with us. Now, just before we went on break, Leila, we were discussing, if bloggers do have any role to play. But let me just ask now that, what do you recommend going forward? Because ultimately, we all should be concerned about our public health. We're all humans at the end of the day. So what would you recommend for bloggers to do going forward?
Okay, for bloggers, I would always say, yes, we cannot stop doing our job. We'll always keep on bringing out, telling the stories as they are happening. But then again, too, it's also our responsibility to also, like as an aside, have sections where we let our readers know that they should never let social media fool them. A lot of these slay queens we see on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, most of them borrow clothes. They borrow those gorgeous clothes. They even borrow the hair to take poses. For the guys, most of them borrow cars. They could just go even a stranger's car, pose with it, So and then there are couples that come on social media and they are flaunting their relationship, and you're thinking, oh my God, I want this I want this relationship too. Then because your man is not spending so much on you as it seems the other person is spending on his woman, and you're like trying to end your relationship or trying to make, make the whole relationship so sad. My point is, the truth actually is most of those relationships are actually dysfunctional. They are able to just take a perfect picture at that particular moment. You don't know what happens when those cameras are off. That's the honest truth. Everybody has their battles.
All right, now let's bring in Timileyin into this conversation. Timileyin, what are the implications of people, painting a reality that is untrue for themselves as maybe personal brand or business brand or whatever kind of image they're trying to portray out there?
Well, the implications for me is simple. You're hurting yourself. That's in the most simplest form. You're hurting yourself. I know there's this thing called fake it till you make it. But you can't keep faking it if you're not making it. Do you understand? So you have to try as much as, even though you want to fake it till you make it, but are you putting in the right work? Are you doing the right things? Are you putting the right energy? So my recommendation is that do not fake it till you make it. Share your real story, share your true story, share the struggle that you go through. With that struggle, then when the riches now come, or when you now finally, let me use the Nigerian term, blow. When you finally blow, or you're finally a big shot in the industry where you belong, you can then enjoy or talk about your journey in a better way.
Thank you so much, Timileyin. Oluronke, I do know that you may have one or two things to say about that.
Okay. Based on what Timi just said now, faking it until you make it. Well, there are a lot of people out there who are probably experiencing anxiety or depression about a particular time, but they want you to see the happy faces behind the pictures of the lovely family and all of that. They still have the depression going on, they have the anxiety going on at that point in time, but they just want to show the world, oh, I have this very happy life and I have this very lovely family going and all that. But at the same time, what I would recommend is that people should be self-accepting. They should accept themselves, accept both the good, accept the bad, your negatives, your successes, your failures. By the time you failed at a particular a task or something, okay, it was this particular thing I didn't do right. But next time you will learn to do it better. And by the time another opportunity occurs for something like that to come on board again, you do it better. So you accept both your failures, you accept your successes. And by the time you see someone else, your colleague, portraying a very happy life, you're like, oh, I'm getting there too. It's gradual. I'm going to actualize my potential. Okay, and then also for the pictures being posted, there was a particular research done by the Royal Society for Public Health in the UK, and it indicated that based on all those low self-esteem, the issue with body images and all that comes up as a result of this fake lifestyles being posted online, they indicated that there should be a warning on all those filtered pictures, all these photoshopped pictures and all that. There should be a warning on them. Probably a policy should be put out there that, okay, this particular picture was photoshopped or something like that. And by the time another person sees, okay, I know this is not real. I know, okay, I don't want to end up being depressed or anxious because this person is having this so-called good life. I already see, okay, it's photoshopped or filtered or something like that. So by the time we are more self-accepting of ourselves, I think it would go a better way, to go a long way towards helping us deal well with issues of fake life on social media.
Thank you very much, Oluronke Ogini, a clinical psychologist at the Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital in Yabahe in Lagos, as well as Leila Ijoma, a blogger, and of course not forgetting Timileyin Bello, who is a PR consultant. He joined us from Delaware in the United States of America. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming on the program.
Sure.
Now let's go see those most viewed videos on our channel in the past week. Stay with us.
At number 5 is the video showing a member of the People's Democratic Party, Kazeem Afegbua, expressing his thoughts on the no speech by President Muhammadu Buhari during his inauguration on May 29.
We are not surprised that there wasn't any speech because this government has been one of monologue, whether you like it or not. They hardly connect with the people, they hardly interact with us, they hardly engage us. The president speaks better when he travels out of the country.
Why did this government get re-elected? It's because we impacted people.
Next is the assessment of President Muhammadu Buhari's first tenure by former Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Raji Fashola. Mr. Fashola, who said his ministry achieved all that it set out to do, shares his opinion on how well the Buhari government performed.
This government is doing something that I don't think many, if any nation has done before. They're building all their infrastructure at the same time. Ports, airports, rail, roads, power, all simultaneously at the same time.
The PDP had 15 governors sworn in and the APC 14. That tells you how much of a monstrous failure they are.
The number 3 video is still on the performance review of President Muhammadu Buhari's first term in office. Here, the spokesman of the Turaki Vanguard, Mr. Chris Mwokobia, and the vice chairman of Buhari Media Organization, Mr. Aliyu Abdullahi, engaged in a heated discussion on the achievement or otherwise of the Buhari administration.
We are beginning to see all the hard work being paid, you know, the foundation that has been laid in this country, the destruction of all the country's assets that your party supervised in its last 16 years of leadership.
At number 2 is the video showing the sight and sound of Buhari's inauguration ceremony on May 29, 2019 at the Eagle Square in Abuja.
National salute! May we all please rise wherever you are seated, please. Officers, warrant officers in uniform should salute. Thank you.
Yemi Osinbajo.
Yemi Osinbajo.
Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will be faithful.
That I will be faithful.
Bear true allegiance.
And bear true allegiance.
To the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
To the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
The most viewed video for the week is that of the May the 29th, 2019 presidential inauguration of President Muhammadu Buhari and Vice President Yemi Osinbajo for a second term in office. The event was attended by personalities from both within and outside Nigeria.
I, Muhammadu Buhari, do solemnly swear. That I will be faithful. And bear true allegiance. To the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Well, those are the most viewed videos on our channel in the past week. Do remember the conversation continues on our social media handles showing on your screen. And it's a wrap on this week's edition of Channels Beam. Thank you for watching. I'm Mayowa Ugundele.